Hey guys, so I was getting a lot of questions about how I organize our timetable. So I am just going to talk a little bit about our schedule, how I think about our schedule, and then walk you a little bit through just how I'm blocking our time, because I basically apply, when you have a timetable like this, it is very similar to the concept of time blocking, where there are chunks of time that you have set aside to do certain types of tasks. And then that actually helps people become much more productive. So I was talking to my husband about this, and he was like, oh, those things are so amazing. I'm so glad you're implementing those. And I was like, well, are you doing that in your work? He was like, no, but I should, you know. So this is something that I guess I just want to straighten this out. Want to share with you that I do. And again, like, I have to say, this is not something that I would come up with on my own. This is not part of, people talk about like their personality. It's not my personality to do this thing or that thing or whatever. But usually when someone's saying that, then they don't have like an imminent need to change what they're doing, because whatever they're doing works for them. And for me, I was doing, which is kind of trying to wing it and trying to do like some loop scheduling and that kind of thing, I was not checking on my kids, like the older ones, throughout the day. Like, I wasn't checking in and just making sure, like, have you done this thing? Like, so what this scheduling has allowed me to do is have regular check-ins with my kids and do kind of some ebb and flow. Like, we're coming together, we're going out to do independent work. Now we're coming back together. So my name is Joy Cherrick, and I do videos about Charlotte Mason homeschooling. And so that is what this is today, is, Charlotte Mason in her volumes talks about just the schedule that they kept and keeping short lessons with the PNEU schools, the Parents National Education Union schools, and how that would allow them to keep lessons short. But it also, you look at these lists, like if you look at Ambleside Online, or even if you download the CMEC, they have like a starter packet, there is so much content in a classical education. There's so many subjects. It's like, how do you get through all these subjects, you guys? And the answer is by taking an inventory of your day and then deciding what are we going to do throughout that time. Now, I need to say this. So I did not realize, and when I went through the CMEC, like homeschool planning, they have this homeschool planning course to kind of get you ready. They were so enlightening as to say, like, when you are planning your homeschool day, you need to be looking at how much time do you have to do homeschool? What is the routine that already exists within your home? Because you're not starting from zero. Like, there are people already in your home. You guys wake up at a certain time. You eat breakfast at a certain time, usually, right? Like, when I'm in pregnancy nursing mode, that all is much later and squishier than when I'm not doing those things, and I'm able to like get up early and start the day like super consistent. So these are just principles that I think we should be able to apply. So if you're in a season where things are nuts and you're having to get up early or late, middle of the night, whatever, write that down. Like, make sure you are making your timetable with those things in mind. So one of the things with the timetable that I have found is how much more productive we are. We start the morning with our kind of the morning block, if you will. I wake people up, and that first block of time is about 45 minutes from the time I wake them up at 7, and then they have certain responsibilities that they need to get done. Make your bed, read your Bible, get dressed, do your morning chore, come downstairs and join us for breakfast. And that, I've been trying to do breakfast at about 7:45. What I noticed, I was trying to do it at 8 and realized that wasn't, they had too much time to lollygag and like mess around. And then we were taking too long with after breakfast cleanup. Like I couldn't get them to hurry up. So it's like, okay, well, we'll just roll it back a little bit. So that first chunk of time is really from 7 a.m. when I wake them up to 8:30 a.m. when we are trying to start our math. And so our next block of time is really from 8:30 to 9:30. And 8:30 to 9 is math. And then 9 to 9:30 is our morning walk. So our morning walk is something I started years ago and I have to keep it in there. I found, first of all, I love being outside. And if I'm not outside every day, I'm so sad that I missed whatever was going on in nature. Like it's such a fun way to mark the days and to know where I am in my rotation around the sun. I love being able to watch the seasons change. I love being able to know what the weather feels like so that I can make sure my kids are properly dressed. So all of those things are why we have kept the morning walk in. And I found we just need to do it right after math. We are squirrely after math. We've been sitting. A lot of the kids are working really hard in how they're thinking and what they're doing. So it's like, just, okay, they're intense. And then it's kind of like an exhale. And then when they return from the morning walk, usually there is another block for our independent work. It's typically a reading, something that some days of the week we are doing something together. Like on Mondays, I have Plutarch at that time and I'm doing that with them. But all the other days of the week, after our morning walk, they are reading something and then doing their narration. But what that allows us to do is I'm sitting down actually with our first grader doing math at that time. But they are able to have that independence. But then I check all the older kids when it's time for morning time after that time block. So how I've got this ebb and flow where it's kind of the big kids are doing independent work, then we're together, then they do independent work, then we're together. And then I'm able to check their work and just check in with them. And then in the morning, I am doing reading lessons with my first grader. Then we're doing the morning walk. Then I'm doing math with my first grader. And then we're doing morning time. So I need the older kids to be actively working on things that they don't like need me to help them with as much. And the reason they don't need me on math, you can watch my video about Beast Academy online. That is they're pretty independent on that because they have a ton of resources. They have a book they can read, videos they can watch for help. They have questions that solutions that they can read through. So typically when we're done with that block during the morning walk, I can certainly check in with them and see, like, do you need me? So the time blocking is such a great tool that productivity hacks, like, they use that all the time. And this is a really fun opportunity for us to use tools that people use in their professional life in our home life. And like I had mentioned, it kind of gets us doing more things because we're marking our time. We're trying to use our time well. Now, I will say that the first 2 weeks I did this, it was super stressful. And I was like on high, like, oh, we got to do this. Oh, we got to do this. But once really the first week we got through that. And then we got through the second week on a lower level of anxiety. Now it's become just very enjoyable and a very helpful tool because now we're all checking in. What's the schedule? What are we supposed to be doing next? The kids are able to be independent. the older ones on what they're supposed to be doing. They don't have to come and ask me, like, what's the next thing we're doing now? And it's allowed them to have a lot more independence, whereas before they were, you know, not getting checked on during the day as much. And I just think that they were either going too fast or going too slow. And it was so difficult for me to help the slow ones, like, pick up the pace, man. And the fast ones, like, hey, stop racing through this thing. And so this has actually given us a lot more freedom to try more things and to just have a more robust education. So I will actually tack on a walk through my Monday timetable so that y'all can see that. I plan on putting them on my website, but we'll see when I can get to that. But thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, if you want to see some more details in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye. All right, so I have Monday set up right here, and as you can see, there is a start time of 6 a.m. and that is for our 13-year-old. And on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, she actually goes and works out with her dad. So every morning looks very similar. And then I actually didn't write it in here, but I wake up all the boys. Well, it's kind of in here, I guess, if you count that. I wake up all the boys and my school-age children at 7 a.m. And my non-school-age children, I just wrote down, like, that's when he wakes up. But I let them sleep. If my baby, who's 1.5, doesn't wake up by 8 o'clock, then I'll wake him up. So the expectations for these kids is that when they first get up between 7 and then we're having breakfast at 7:45, that they read, and I have it written down. You know, certain days are reading the Old Testament, certain days are reading the New Testament, but they're actually just opening and reading whatever they find. Then they have a morning chore that they're supposed to do, and we have that written down somewhere else. And then when I wrote this out, I had assigned times for piano, but really it turned out we only have time for one child to do piano before we start breakfast at 7:45. And for this to happen, like for my kids to be waking up at 7, like I'm waking them up, and for breakfast to happen at 7:45, I need to be awake and dressed and everything, you know, really by 6:30. I'm actually waking up on my own at 5 o'clock for some reason. So I'm like getting all the things done, but that's just this season. I don't know. Okay. And then, so from 7:45 until about 8:15, we're eating breakfast and we're doing our family devotions. And then we have our cleanup after breakfast. And then they need to start math at 8:30. And every day, you know, except the days my daughter's not working out with their dad, this is basically the same expectation. And that's just how this is working. So I'm not going to continue going through our morning part on the subsequent days. I'm just going to start at 8:30 when we start math. And then I have my first grader who does reading lessons with me. Everything in purple is where I'm supposed to be. Anytime it's yellow, we're eating. And then anytime it's green, we're doing a snack or having some sort of a break. So my first grader is doing reading lessons with me. My 4-year-old is playing. She's usually sitting at the table with us. And my 1.5-year-old is usually either sitting in my lap or toddling between us. Then this is my 3rd grader. He actually does math with dad in our bedroom. And my husband's usually like checking emails and just kind of like sitting next to him. He really just, my 3rd grader just needs someone sitting there like with that energy, but it needs to be very quiet for him. Then at 9 a.m., we do our morning walk, and we do that every day after math. And then on Mondays, this is my like big kid time. And you'll notice I have this Mima school. So my mother comes to our house about 9:20, and she takes my 1.5-year-old, my 4-year-old, and my first grader upstairs, and she reads, plays games, does all that stuff just on Mondays. So then that allows us to have a 30-minute block to do Plutarch, and I'm actually doing that with our 7th grader, our 6th grader, our 4th grader, and our 3rd grader. Then we have my older student does her piano while everybody else gets a snack, and then she has her snack when we're doing my older two. I'm doing ourselves with them, and we're having like a group morning time, and then we break out and do ourselves with these two. And then when we're done with the morning time portion, then my 4th grader does his grammar, and my 3rd grader does his pen time, which is his writing assignment, and he reads and does his narration after that. And then after that one-on-one time I have with my older students, they're supposed to read their ancient history reading for 15 minutes and write their narration. So like on this block here, let's see, this 10:45 block, everybody's supposed to be reading something quietly. And then on this section, I know everybody's supposed to be doing their narration, right? Even though it's different things. And then we go back into, now my 7th grader is doing Sabbath Mood Homeschool, and she has a science lab that she does at that time on her own. It's independent. But then I do the science lab with my older 3 students. So that's my 6th grader, my 4th grader, and my 3rd grader. Then we break for lunch, and right now we have a piano teacher coming at 1, and every 30 minutes we have lessons. So let's see, but during that nap time, or sorry, yeah, during this time, the baby has a nap, and these guys are either playing outside, or if it's raining, they're probably reading or playing. Then all of our afternoons are pretty similar. We have afternoon chores once the piano teacher leaves. Then kids can play outside. See, I wrote that twice. See, sometimes you just, it's a work in progress. Then we have dinner. We probably have dinner between 5 and 6. It is not like, I'm not super regimented on our dinner time. I'm regimented on breakfast, and we're pretty consistent on lunch. We might even usually have it a little bit earlier. This schedule runs a little bit earlier. But then dinner kind of has a flex. We've usually had some type of snack around, I don't know, 2. And then we have evening devotions together. Again, this time is kind of flex, 7:30. What works nicely, sometimes we will have them read for 30 minutes quietly before lights out at 8. And then you'll see the baby's bedtime is much earlier. His bedtime is between 6:30 and 7. All right, now we move to Tuesday, and I'm actually going to skip down here because you'll see everything is the same except my daughter's not working out with dad. Our math is the same. Our morning walk is the same. But now we have this independent block. All of our days kind of have this flow of we're together, right? We start the day having breakfast together, and then we split up for something independent. Then we do something together, which is our morning walk. Then we go on to something independent. Then we have a break to just, you know, help us out. And then we move into something together. Then we move in to independent work. But you'll see here, I'm having time with the younger children. So this is when I'm fitting in our story time. And then we're moving on to our family work with our morning time. And then the kids found that it was actually better if they did this work before lunch. which is why these colors are all different. And like some kids are having lunch over here and some are like, oh no, we're doing it later. So, you know, I actually, with this schedule, these two children, my older kids, were eating and then they were finishing some of this stuff up. So we're, you know, these timetables are a work in progress. This, some of it too is just to say, okay, well, this is the sequence that we're working through. And then also what I found with this block, if we do it after lunch or around this time, if I do it together with them, then they're much more inclined to not be like, oh, it's time to, you know, move on with the day. So then after lunch, we have afternoon chores. And then I have it set up that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but really if we can get it done one day a week, we're working on a handcraft project that's kind of a multi-month project. Every kid got to choose a item they wanted to make out of a nativity. It's like a felt nativity pattern that I bought. So that's been really fun. It's like, just cut out shapes today, or just cut out your felt, or you're going to sew a line. So that's what they're doing there. And then I have certain days of the week where kids can help with dinner. And so that's what this is. He's the kitchen assistant here. And then they have free time and dinner at 5, and then the same evening again. So let's just see. I think all of that is pretty consistent.